Okay, so welcome to the session.
We should unmute.
You have to unmute too. Okay.
Okay.
I should be unmuted already. I think that's the person there that.
Okay.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you.
So good afternoon, I'm Yujian. Welcome to my presentation. Today I will present paper titled Effects of Color-Coded Nutrition Fact Panel and Consumer Responses. My co-authors are Chen from University of Tennessee and the Dr. Gao and Dr. House from University of Florida. So I will motivate my paper by the fact that the nutrition fact panel is critical because it communicates the nutrition information to consumers. So usually it has to follow some specific rules. Like in the United States, it's displayed in the white black color and will present big 7 nutrient facts like the fat and the sodium. So because the nutrition facts panel is so important, so different countries have put the great effort to improve the efficiency of the nutrition labels. Like in the United States, the most recent changes happened in 2014, which made the calories and the serving size information more obvious with larger and bolder font type. Also, it added more sugar information to the label. In the UK, it also created and introduced a traffic light nutrition label, and the label used red, amber, and gray colors to indicate the nutrient contents. For example, in this product, the sugars is red color because the product contains high sugars. So although there is a lot of efforts but some studies found there is no significant difference between the color label and the black white one, because it just presents 4 nutrient facts. So the information provided by the traffic light is incomplete. And also there is more solution of avoiding engine-dense food rather than to promote the nutrient-dense healthier food, because it provides the 4 nutrient facts are all favorite nutrition information. So therefore, we want to create a traffic light nutrition fact panel, which based on the United States modified labels in 2014, but you end the traffic light authorized. So we want to evaluate whether this label is effective to attract more attention to the nutrition facts on the label and affect the consumers' decisions on healthy food choice. Also, we want to improve the understanding of the nutrition panel, facts panel, and the perception of the healthiness of the products. So based on these objectives, we have designed 3 studies. Next, I will overview the data and method in my study and then introduce 3 studies separately. So this study used national online surveys, which were sent out in late 2018 and early 2019. There are about 571 respondents, and we used 2 products, the chips and the salad kits. The chips present a healthy food and the salad present healthy food. So each product will have 3 nutrition levels, classified as less healthy, which is also low nutrition level, less healthy, which is medium nutrition level, and healthy, which has high nutrition level. For example, for salad, the healthy one will have less calorie, less fat, less saturated fat, and the less sodium. The chips will have the same case for those 5 nutrient facts. So next, I will move on to my first study. This study evaluates effects of colors in attracting attention. First, we want to evaluate whether the color code labels attract more overall attention than the black and white one. Also, we want to evaluate whether the label attracts more attention to the unfavorite nutrition facts like the fats, the saturated fat. In this study, there are two formats of labels. The first is black, white one, and then the second is traffic light. We ask the respondents one question, we use the attention test to evaluate whether the label attract more attention. So in each label, the nutrition will change from two directions. One is from the middle to low, and another is from middle to high. So there are 4 groups. One respondents will randomized into one product. They have to finish 4 attention tests based on those 4 groups. So how do they do the attention test? First, we present a label for about 15 seconds, and then give them a break for about 3 seconds, and then present the second different labels. Then we ask the respondents to find the difference of the nutrition facts between the second and first label. So there are 2 measurements in our study. First is time each respondent needed to finish the test. And the second is the successful rate of finding the place of difference. So first, about the first measurement, time needed to finish the attention test. First, we found that the people in the chip groups usually spend more time to finish the test compared to those in the salad groups. Also, when the traffic light is applied, there is no significant reduction in the time spending to finish the attention test. Next, regarding the results about successful rate of finding difference for chips. When the nutrition level changes from middle to high, and when the traffic light label is used, on the successful rate of fat, carbohydrate, and the fat, sodium, and the sugars will improve. But the success rate of the carbohydrate will decrease. So when nutrition level changes from middle to low, there is only change in the sodium. So based on our results, we conclude that there is no big difference about time which the respondents use to find the difference between the labels. But we do find that the traffic light label attract more overall attention for chips, well, not for the salad. Also for chips, the more attention is attracted to the specific nutrient facts, like the fat, sodium, and sugars, but less attention to other nutrients. So next, I will move to the second study. This study evaluates impact of color-coded labels and healthy decisions. So in this study, we want to evaluate whether the label makes it easier for consumers to make healthy decisions. In this study, we use 3 label formats: the black, white one, traffic light, and the green one. When the representatives were randomly assigned to one product, they have to ask, they will be asked one question, and they have to choose the product that is most or least likely to purchase. And there will be 3 alternatives, each represent 1 nutrient level. Also, we include 2 measurements in this study. The first one is time needed to answer the questions. The second is rate of making healthy option to as most likely to purchase, or rate of choosing least healthy option as least likely to purchase. So there is an example of the 3 label formats. First, about the first measurements, within the 4 salad groups, there is no difference on the time spending when the different labels are applied. But when the traffic light is applied, there will be a significant reduction in the time needed to finish the questions. Second, when the traffic light is used, it will be more effective to improve the likelihood of purchasing healthy food and avoiding the least healthy products. Also, the traffic light is more effective to improve likelihood of least likely to purchase the least healthy product. So based on those results, we conclude that the color-coded labels are effective to reduce time needed to make a decision for the case of chips, well, not for salad. Also, the traffic label can inhibit the unhealthy choice for the case of the chips, but not significant impact promoting the healthy choice. Lastly, the traffic light and gray labels are less effective promoting the healthy choice in case of salad kits. The last study evaluated the effect of colors in attracting attention. In this study, first we evaluate whether the color-coded label makes it easier for consumers to assess the healthiness of the products. We also evaluate whether the label helps consumers make more accurate assessments of the healthiness of products. In this study, we also use three formats of labels. And we ask the respondents a question: which alternative do you think is healthy based on those three labels? In those three labels, there are three category groups based on the different nutrition level. So the three formats of labels and three category groups generate 9 pairwise comparison questions. In this study, it includes 2 measurements. One is time needed to answer a question. Second, the perception of correctly perceive the healthiness alternatives. So there is an example of the question and the alternatives. So when the traffic label is applied, there will be a significant deduction in the average time when the respondent asked to compare the nutrition between high and low. For salad, when the traffic light is applied, the time spending ask question, the time spending on the compare nutrition from high to low and medium to low will both deduce. So that's all my results. And based on our results, we have 3 applications. First, we think the results provide essential information on policy and the regulation of the nutrition fact panel and other nutrition labels that aim to explore ways to reduce information searching cost. It also can enhance consumer information processability and increase the effectiveness of the delivery nutrition information to consumers. So it's end of my presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, have plenty of time.
Oh, okay. So, one comment and one question. I know that FDA added sugar, the added sugar project didn't come into effect in 2020 until 2020 and 2021. So when you're writing it up, you may want to know that where that change and impact changed in relationship to when your survey was. The second question I had is, did you screen for any food allergies or dietary preferences or anything like that before you did the survey?
For the second questions, we do select some background of the respondents, but we don't have specific question about their attitude or how they feel for food. So we don't have that data set.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned that is I personally have a sensitivity to vinegar. And so I am going to, even though I really care about healthy eating, I'm probably going to pick the least expensive or the least healthy salad because that's going to have a cream dressing. But I also don't eat meat, so I'm also going to pick the vegetarian option. And that has nothing to do with the health. That is because of my dietary preferences. And I would assume that other people's dietary preferences might impact the choice of what they're going to buy. Now, it doesn't have knowing which one is healthy is a better question.
I agree. It's a good point. And in this research, we didn't have the data set and didn't answer a question about the heterogeneous between the people who have different attitude toward healthy food. in future, maybe we will end this question and do
Well, my
something.
question is, I think you asked which one would you buy? So that's gonna, if I'm gonna pay money for it, I'm gonna take in all of my considerations. But in another part of your study, you had which one is healthier? Maybe the first one, maybe I'm remembering wrong. The first one was which one would you buy?
The for the study to when you story different labels to
And then the study one. I probably meant. Sorry about that.
it's okay, maybe we can talk about later.
So
when
any other
come-
questions? Yeah, so I think in the study, you found a difference between salad chips and chips. But, you know, explanation do you offer why there is a difference between the products? Right?
Yeah, the results show that the traffic light is more effective to the chip than salad. So why there is a difference? We think because for chips, people assume they are unhealthy food, and the people will pay more attention to their nutrition fact, the panel facts. But for salad, it's a healthy food, and even when you use a traffic light label, cannot catch much attention from consumers. So maybe it's one of the explanation.
But, you know, there are different kinds of salads, that Andy was mentioning, right? So the healthiness, you know, can't assume that, I mean, the whole point of providing information is to be able to make that distinction. Like salads loaded with other stuff, maybe, you know, may not quite be that healthy, although consumers are confused and think just by saying the word salad is healthy. So anyway, it's just something to think about why there is differences from products. Amen.
So I can't, so follow up that, you know, I'm looking at the numbers, of course, you know, so what's the difference between, and I don't know, attention, of course, you know, you look at thousands of products, maybe hundreds of products, and 0.6 seconds makes a big difference, but I mean, is that really large? I mean, what does the literature say? It's half a second, I guess.
Yeah, so for the results, when as there is improvement of the decrease, there will be a
That's
p-test.
very large. So
Yeah.
it's like 10%. That's for time.
Yeah, full time, when traffic light is applied, there is no significant difference. And for chips, consumer usually spend a little more time to find the difference, but generally there is no significant difference.
No, I follow the Jay's, the area of literature that Jay was talking about is called the halo effect.
Halo effect.
Right, and it's in the food science literature.
We have like one last question.
So my question is, the biggest thing that you're trying to persuade people over the time is to click, right? Now, the thing is that here, when we did the survey, was it a one-shot thing, or was it, did the survey respondents have a period of time in which they would actually be able to, like, you know, train themselves, right? Because it's like, you see something the first time, versus something you see like the 20th, 50th, 1 millionth time. You know, what I worry is, you know, in the real market, when you have this and people are very familiar with it, that already small differences will diminish. That makes sense?
Yeah, natural, the time between chips and the salad is, the difference is not big. Yeah, we will think about it. Thank you for the question.
Okay, well, I think that, thank you very much. So next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you.
The second presentation is, information framing and the impact of nutrition level serving size.
I need to share the screen, right?
Yeah, it's sharing, you're already sharing.
I don't think so.
No, there you go.
Yeah, I think,
There you stop. Just a share again, I guess.
okay. Okay,
So maybe why don't you check the chat? Okay,
oh, so the site didn't share it last time. Okay. So hello everyone, my name is Yu Xiang, a PhD student at Penn State University. I'm really honored to have the opportunity to present today. What I'd like to present is information framing and the impact of nutrition label serving size change. This paper is co-worked with Dr. Yizhao Liu and Dr. Lin Fan. So when we are shopping at grocery stores, we could see the nutrition facts labels on the back of the packaged foods, and it lists the nutritional contents, the serving size, and the calorie amounts for recommended serving of that food items. And these labels have been widely appearing on the packaged foods in 1994 in the United States, and it makes it easier for consumers to compare nutrition information between similar food products and potentially to help consumers to make a more informed and healthier food choice when they want to eat this food product, and also kind of allow them how they could better balance their food choices throughout the day. And to reflect the most updated nutrition updated scientific information, including the link between the diet and chronic diseases, as well as the new nutrition research and consumer demand for clearer format of nutrition facts labels. The FDA updated the nutrition facts label requirements in 2016. And by this policy, this includes, firstly, there are some formatting changes on the serving sizes and the calorie amounts. And other changes, including the nutrients that listed on the label, had also been updated to match the nutritional needs for Americans. And because for some items that the amount that people typically eat or drink at one time can be significantly changed throughout the time. So the serving size also has been updated to reflect a more recent consumption habits for these items. And okay. And when we look at these nutrition fact labels, we can see their information tells us about the serving size and number of servings. But it is also worth noting that this information that shown on their label also need to refer to its size of serving. So if a larger or smaller serving sizes may change how consumers process this information, and consumers' purchasing decisions can be affected by how this information is framed. So when you are trying to eat a packaged food, you might ask yourself if you are consuming half serving, one serving, or even more servings. So take carbonated soft drinks as an example if you are consuming one serving of carbonated soft drinks. But the serving size is different from one to another, even though the total package size is the same. Then these numbers shown on the label can be significantly different. Therefore, food manufacturers may reframe this nutrition information by manipulation of the serving size. Previous literature had been studying, literature had been studying how serving sizes or number of servings affect consumers' purchasing decisions, but most of them using survey or experimental methods. For example, there are studies and they suggest a higher number of servings is likely to decrease food intake relative to labeling the food with a smaller number of servings. But from another perspective, there are also studies suggest a smaller serving size for the same quantity of food has the potential to increase food consumption. And there is also a study in 2016, they kind of separate food category for healthy and unhealthy. And their results suggest the reduced serving size specification are likely to increase the sales volume for healthy food category, but not for the unhealthy food category. And all these variations can explain how serving size information is framed. So in this paper, we will examine how the serving size change in nutrition facts labels affects consumer choices. More specifically, we will use carbonated soft drinks as a case study, and we will run a random coefficient discrete choice consumer demand model to evaluate both direct and indirect effects of serving size change on carbonated soft drink consumption through serving size change itself and its potential heterogeneous influence on the nutritional information that's caused by the serving size change. And then we simulate an alternative policy design in serving size change to investigate its potential impacts on consumer choices. So as I just mentioned, we use carbonated soft drinks as a case study, and we have several reasons here. Firstly, carbonated soft drinks has been identified as a major source of increasing obesity rate. And secondly, there are variations in changes of serving size across different bottle sizes. And thirdly, by using carbonated soft drinks, we could potentially exclude the impact of added sugar information from the updated nutrition facts label, because it's almost all added sugars in carbonated soft drinks. And then we use Nielsen retail scanner data of brand level sales and price from 2014 to 2020 to cover the time period before and after the policy. And for the product information, we see that calorie, sodium, and caffeine as a potential nutrition information that could possibly affect consumer behaviors, because these three variables are kind of most varied across the nutrition facts table. And the table on the right shows the comparison of serving size. So before the policy, the serving size is 8 ounces, and those bottle sizes who do not meet two whole servings will need to indicate their serving size as a whole bottle. After the policy, the serving size include to 12 ounces. And from the last column, we could see that by the way, 20 ounce is a special case. Its serving size is still its own bottle size after the policy. And from this comparison table, the most significant changes occurred on 16.5 ounce bottle, and those bottles greater or equal to 24 ounce, their serving size change is 4 ounce. So before the structural analysis, we first estimate a reduced form analysis to investigate its potential impact of serving size change. We use a simple deep analysis, and we use the log volume of the selected top carbonated soft drink brand that's sold in each market as a dependent variable. And we for those carbonated soft drinks that their serving size has been impacted by the policy, we set them as a treatment group. And for the post-policy, we include time periods after 2019, which is 2019 and 2020. And by doing this, we use time fixed effects, product fixed effects, and state fixed effects. The coefficient for the interaction term between treatment group and post-policy is negative and statistically significant, which suggests the serving size change has a negative impact on the sales of the impacted carbonated soft drink products. And to better understand consumers' preferences for carbonated soft drinks, we ran a random coefficient discrete choice model following Barry's paper in 1995. And to match the predicted market shares with the actual market shares, we solve the model parameter using generalized methods of moments. And in this model, we assume that a consumer will choose a product that will maximize his or her period utility, and the indirect utility can be written as this equation, we assume that the indirect utility can be impacted by the product prices and also can be impacted by product other characteristics. And also it can be affected by the serving side change itself, which is a direct impact, and also the nutritional change that caused by the serving side change. That is our so-called indirect impact of the serving side change. And the sigma here is unobserved time varying product and market factors, the error term following type 1 extreme value distribution. And this table shows the results of the random coefficient discrete choice model. And we could see that the coefficient for price is negative and statistically significant, which makes sense since the demand decrease as the price increases. And for the serving side change relative variables, serving side change is a variable that describes how the serving side difference describe the serving side difference before and after the policy. And we could see the coefficient for this variable is also negative and statistically significant. So from the direct perspective, the serving side change is likely to have a negative impact on consumer utility. And the following three variables describe the calorie information changes through the caused by the serving side change, and they are also negative and statistically significant. From the indirect perspective, we kind of suggest that this also can cause negative effects on consumer preferences. Other product characteristics, including bottle size, it has a positive impact on consumer preferences. And the coefficient for sodium, the coefficient for calorie and caffeine is also positive and statistically significant, which suggests consumers' preferences for the calorie and caffeine-dense carbonated soft drinks. While the coefficient for sodium is negative, which can suggest consumers' preferences for the fewer sodium content products. And based on our current analysis, we do not see any heterogeneous effects across consumers. And to better understand the impact of serving size, we kind of simulate an alternative policy. We increase the serving size to 60 ounce. And by doing so, compared with current policy, we could see that the red circle bottle sizes that are impacted by the policy and their market shares have all decreased from over 0.001% to over 0.02%. And for those bottle sizes that are not impacted by the policy, their market shares has a slightly increased. So because this paper has not been finished yet, so for next steps, we plan to add supply side analysis and to estimate the equilibrium model to better understand how manufacturers will act for this policy. And then we will simulate alternative counterfactual analysis to better understand what will manufacturers do. Will they reformulate their food products to make their labels look better? And thank you so much for listening. That's all I have for today. Any questions and comments are welcome.
Right. Have you seen, you're using scanner data?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen the appearance of a 24.5 ounce bottle? Because obviously the 16.5 came on the market so they can do 2 servings. So now are they going to do 24.5 ounce?
24.5.
So then it can be 2 servings.
Yeah.
And it's basically a 24 ounce bottle.
Yeah, so when we are doing the analysis, we kind of combine similar bottle size product into one category. Yeah.
Right, but the 24.5, as I understand it, the 24.5
Okay.
would
Have a large.
It's 2 servings instead of one, whereas the 24. Oh, no, it's the. Yeah, it's 2 servings, okay. It's how many servings are on the bottle. The big list,
You mean which bottle size?
yeah. So,
Six.
okay, because it's 20.5. Where's the cutoff of what a serving? The serving is, does anybody? See what I'm telling? I think the 16.5
They're serving.
bottle came along because the original serving size was 8.
Yeah, and then
Somewhere there's a cutoff of 1. And I was wondering if you're starting to find that in the market. I'm not making myself clear.
I don't think that there is much of a 4.5
yeah.
bottle size. That's bottle size, and so a lot of, I don't think that's enough.
Okay.
Let's consider a serving. The drink,
That's the change.
Yeah.
that's the A4.
Serving it's
A serving, okay, now
it's like
it's to be 8, now it's 12.
yeah. Increase from 8 to 12.
12 ounces of the bottle.
Yeah. Yeah, so we cannot like drink the 2-liter bottle at once, so they say like many servings on that label, but people may not realize that this nutrition information is account only for 1 serving. People may think that this information might mean for the whole package. So that's the big thing.
So why does that serving size matter to the utility point? What?
Because it's changed.
You know why? I mean, so
I mean,
so think about that.
because
So
for some of the.
I'm not trying to be argumentative,
Okay.
but you know, I'm looking for a product one to see the quantity of sugar. But why all the size?
That's what the quantity of sugar is based on.
Yeah. So if it's
It's the amount be higher or lower now. For each product, it has more or less. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so it's the overall quantity of sugar, not the per volume.
Yeah,
That's
not
change.
for
Per
product.
serving.
Yeah.
Look at the results, these changes are not terribly substantial, like the results. Like, when compared to the effective price, the effective serving size changes. Yeah, you can write sequential effects, but I don't think it's huge, you can see, multiply that by 4.
Yeah, but if we compare the market share difference, then this is a little bit huge because we also kind of calculate the mean market share difference ratio compared to our current market share. I mean, this change is huge. I mean,
I'd be interested in seeing what the change from the serving size of 8 ounces to 12 ounces to sort of what happened.
8 ounce to 12 ounce.
Yes, what happened.
Yeah, but it's kind of not possible because we only have data for after the change. We do not know what will happen if there is no change in 2019 and 2020 because it's already changed.
But they didn't even show up on the labels until 2020.
No, actually,
The serving size changed, but the
Yeah.
added sugar didn't show up.
yeah, I think many of the big manufacturers had already updated their label before 2020.
Yeah.
So in this, I just forgot to mention that in this paper, we search on some manufacturers' websites, and there are some news on the internet. So we assume that this policy changed in their labels changed in 2019. So they kind of like prior the enforcement
Yeah.
date. Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
They did shift a little bit more, but not usually.
Yeah.
If your data can go back several years,
Yeah.
that would answer more questions, but it might be. Are these market shares? I just what it says 0.015%, or is that 1.5%?
Which one?
Well, are these? Yeah, okay, so yeah, are those actually percents or?
Percent.
Okay, so we're talking about very tiny. market share.
Yeah. Because in our analysis for the whole market, we add sugar, we add like whole carbonated soft drinks market, we add bottled water market, and we also add fruit drinks market. So it's kind of a big market.
Maybe take those. I want you to take the market share.
We need this,
Within the part.
Yeah.
carbonated, so they sell the market. Well, thank you.
So let's see if I can keep my presentation short too. These presenters are doing a great job. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so good afternoon. So now, I'm continue talking about nutritional labeling, and actually this is traffic light nutritional labeling, but in another context. So this is in Ecuador and among children. So for those of the audience, I'm from Ecuador, and actually Ecuador is in South America, western part, and of course is very close to the equator. So we have collaborators from Ecuador, Universidad Nacional de Loja, two people in nutrition, Oscar Sarasti, also from Texas Tech, and we also have Susan Watson from University of Texas. Let me see. Moving. Okay, so all this talk about, of course, labeling starts with this concern about obesity, and most of the concern, usually the conversation happens in developed countries, but obesity is also a problem in lower and middle income countries, and actually Ecuador is a middle income country. During the COVID pandemic, obesity became, a concern because we knew that there were severe complications due to COVID in obese people. And the other thing is obesity is not only a problem with, the adult population, but also with children. So according to the World Health Organization, there are actually about 300 million, children that are overweight or obese. And of course, again, so nutritional labeling there's been a lot of discussions about implementing this policy to help consumers to make healthier choices. But in some countries, actually, these policies have been implemented already, which is the case of Ecuador. So in the case of obesity, specifically in Ecuador, so, see about 1 in 3 children are overweight or obese between the 5 and 11 years old, about 1 in 4 in the 12 to 19 years old, and actually in the adult population is pretty high, it's almost 2 out of 3. So, it's a real concern. So in 2013, actually the Ecuadorian government already implemented this mandatory traffic light nutritional labeling for all the processed food products. So, this traffic light is what's called sometimes supplementary labeling, or sometimes they call it interpretative labeling. It complements, and actually we had 2 previous presentations that they talk about this nutrient declaration label. So it's usually in addition to that, so it's try to help to complement that information. Specifically in the case of Ecuador, they focus in 3 nutrients. So they have sugar, salt, and fat. And of course, traffic light, they use red for high concentration, medium for medium, and yellow for medium, and green for low. And also it had this message does not contain a specific nutrient. And of course, you have the combination of all those different colors depending on the levels for each nutrient. So the objective of the study, we wanted to evaluate the effect of the traffic light nutritional level attributes specifically on children, and we were focusing on food choices and preferences. So in terms of contribution to the literature, is this focus on choices and preferences among children, which, you know, actually most of the studies focus on adults. And what happens in a lot of, you know, developing countries, actually children, they make food choices. You know, they are giving everyday money and they buy at school. And I show you we have some data on that. So they're already making choices using actual money. So, you know, they have to make these trade-offs between the attributes and the money that they are giving to buy the food. And the other thing is kind of unique about this study. You see a lot of studies look at the presence versus the absence of the label and what's going to impact in the choices. So this is already a policy that was implemented. So no, we were more interested in what's called, I mean, economists love this thing, like the intensive margin. So what happens going from, you know, the red to the yellow to the green to the it does not contain. So those are kind of like the three contributions. You know, literature, and I kind of already mentioned about that. Actually, you know, there's a nice meta-analysis in PLOS One, 56 studies, 97 of the studies focusing on traffic light labels, and again, most of them in the adult population. In children, 2 studies that were identified, one in Peru, another one in Uruguay, and basically they didn't find, you know, effects of these labels. So for the data, so we actually use a survey, and then, you know, we had a choice experiment. That's kind of, I mean, the bottom line. So we did a survey with about 1,200 kids attending public schools. So it was in 3 cities that, you know, they are all in the south part of the country, but, you know, they represent 3 different regions because we wanted some heterogeneity. It was during COVID. So actually, you know, we had to do it online, which, I mean, it had some benefits and of course disadvantages too. So they, you know, they were attending classes using this virtual classroom. So actually, you know, they gave us access to randomly selected classrooms. And then, you know, we conducted these surveys, and then, you know, we needed, working with children, you need authorization from the regional authorities, local authorities, the specific teachers, the parents, and even, you know, like the students. So the fact that everybody, you know, like, for example, you know, like to ask permission from parents, it was good that everybody was already using WhatsApp. So that really facilitated that part of the process at least. Survey, multidisciplinary group, you know, economists, public health people, Ecuador and the United States. We pilot tested because, you know, we wanted to see how kids actually understood the survey and so on and so forth. And, you know, we asked the information about socio-demographic characteristics, the purchase habits, and also, you know, these choice experiments. So 2 sets of choice experiments. So we chose yogurt and soft drinks. And, you know, the attributes, of course, you know, there were the labels, and within each label, the labels were the 3 colors plus the price. So for yogurt, you know, we chose yogurt because, you know, actually, you know, it usually has fat content, sugar content, and salt content. And we also have another one with soft drinks where the exclusive focus is in sugar. You know, they usually have like a green label for salt, so it doesn't change. And, you know, the prices were kind of, you know, close to the market prices. So these were the choice experiments, the yogurts, and of course, you know, you can see how they vary, you know, of course, the price, and also, you know, like the labels. You can see, for example, you know, the first one is high in fat, and it was low in sugar and low in salt. And the other one was high both in fat and sugar, but low in salt. And for the soft drinks, actually, we have 2 different drinks. One was a juice, and another one was like a soda. It's kind of like a Coca-looking soda, but we didn't use any brand. And of course, you know, you could choose any option, and they also had like an opt-out option. You know, we estimated kind of like a mixed logic model. You know, the focus is in estimating those parameters of the indirect utility function, the price coefficient, and also these coefficients of the non-price attributes, which in this case are the labels. Simulated maximum likelihood estimation. And then, you know, so we did 2 things. You know, we estimated, of course, you know, in marketing, usually we're interested in estimated unwillingness to pay. But here we wanted to see the marginal effect, you know, how it's going to change the probability of choosing a product. So that's something that we also did. And finally, you know, we also used these models. We were trying to explore the association between socio-demographic characteristics and the willingness to pay. So summary statistics about having half male and female, middle school, I mean, you know, about the equal proportion. And, you know, so here you can see, you know, what we call lunch money. So you see about 56%, they get between $1 and $2 these kids to buy at school. And of course, some other, kids get more money, and, about 20% get less than $1, but actually it's about 92% of the kids that get some money to buy things at school. Where do they buy it? Most of them buy in the school cafeteria, but you can see some of them already buy also in the street. And also, stores and supermarkets, and they don't add up to 100 because, they can buy in several places. So, that gives you a good idea of what's the situation. So these are the marginal effects on the probability of choice. So, for example, let's talk about this yellow label fat. And this marginal effect is relative to a product with a red label. So you see, having a product with a yellow label for fat increases the probability of choosing that product by 20%, which is, actually is quite high. The green label for fat is 26%. And again, they are all relative to the red. So it increases a little bit more, it's 26. The increase relative to the yellow, you see, is not as high. And actually, I was thinking about this. So, they are trying to avoid that red color. But, so that effect on the probability of choosing a healthier product is not really, linear. It seems to be, it's a kind of increases at a decreasing rate. Similar thing, and actually even coefficients for sugar, which is kind of very interesting. For salt, so for salt, the baseline attribute is a yellow label. So actually you can see that increase of only 3%. Very similar results actually for soft drinks with sugar. Here, the additional thing that we have is that does not contain, but 30%, which is, pretty high. And, again, we were talking with kids, and there is always the concern that, so they are making, choices acting as rational agents, and, the price coefficient was negative. Now that looks very high because it's like $1 increase, which is a pretty high increase. Remember, the price is about 50 cents, so it's about 2% decrease in the probability of choice for a 10-cent increase in the price. So it's a little bit insensitive. Willingness to pay values, it kind of gives us the same information. I mean, these values look high, but it's kind of the same message. So you see the premium for a yellow label fat is 90 cents, and then it increases to $1 for the green. Slight increase, and similar results for the other the same thing, the other labels, and within both products, kind of very, very similar results. So results discussion and a summary: 92% of children receive money to buy at school. So children prefer and are more likely to buy these products with traffic lights, labels representing healthier alternatives, consistent across the products and the nutrients. And and that effect is large. I mean, that at least 20%. I mean, that's relative to the red label. I mean, that's a large effect. And so the results seem to align with this the intent of the policy. And I was talking about this kind of like non-linear effect that I don't want to mention again. I think I'm going to skip that. And then we were looking at these effects on the willingness to pay for each of the attributes. And I don't want to talk about the table. So this is kind of the summary. So we found that male children are usually willing to pay more for healthier alternatives than females, but and actually females are more likely to be obese in Ecuador. So I don't know if that's kind of like the rule, but it's kind of consistent with that. Very small income effects because we're looking at how much money the kids had to buy at school, and the elasticities were very low. And I mean, so another thing that we found, and it's kind of it's a puzzle, a negative effect of knowledge, because we asked some questions to see if they really understood the label. It was kind of like a negative effect. From one perspective, we're saying, well, I mean, the traffic light label is conveying the information even though they don't understand it very well. So I mean, that's good. The other thing is, so remember with these traffic light labels, I mean, if people really know about nutrition, they know that they should be more concerned about the overall diet rather than the specific amount of sugar in a product. So, I mean, that's kind of like the explanation that we have for that result. So the overall conclusions, so, these traffic light labels seem to be effective at helping children make choices that are consistent with their preferences, which appear to be for healthier products. So, these findings support the use of the labels to help them make choices that are healthier. Now, something to be careful, we're not saying that this policy that was adopted has been effective at changing their habits, because we don't have that data here. There is no baseline data available. Now, the counter argument is, now that being said, actually this data can be used to monitor those preferences. And I've been arguing not only in this context, but in other contexts. You see, it's very hard to have actual purchase data for children. I mean, there's no such a data set. Maybe in the US at certain schools, you can do that, but there is not in Ecuador. So, we're saying that using this state preferences kind of provides some sort of cost-effective alternative to evaluate these policies. If you can do it before and after the policy change and continuously, and is not as expensive as collecting actual data. Now, we use state preferences, and I know there are a lot of concerns about it, but so it reminds me of this proverb. I mean, we have it in Spanish. I didn't know I would have it in English. So children and drunks always speak the truth. So again, this was a state experiment. If we have any behavioral people here in the room, maybe they want, they might want to test this. I don't know how to get an IRB with drunks, to work with drunk people. But yeah, so so yeah, that's what we have. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, and then.
Did you include or control for the type of class that they took it in, like if they're sitting in a health class or health education class versus English?
No, we did not. I mean, and we didn't think about it. I mean, actually, we didn't even collect data about that. I mean, it was hard enough for the people on the field trying to, get through the loops and get in through classrooms. So yeah, it was not like the math teacher maybe get us in one class, and it was, I don't know, like the social science teacher get us in another class. So we did not control for that. Yeah.
And then I also have a question about the labeling.
Mhm.
Is it sugar or added sugar?
It's sugar.
It's all sugar.
It's called sugar, all sugar. Yeah, because so for an orange juice, that's kind of maybe where your question is coming. And I don't know.
And when it's salt, is it just salt or all sugar?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Oscar is the food scientist. The sodium.
But it's more,
They have,
yeah, it's how it's easier to understand.
Yes, Belly.
like age range.
So they had to be middle school and high school. I mean, yeah. So we have that range of students. We did that range, and yeah, we didn't include that in the model to see if there was any difference. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should add. That's a very good question. I mean, we can add into the model to see if there is any difference in behavior between the younger ones and the. But no. So I remember, because we have another paper, we're only looking at knowledge and use of the labels, and did we find any association between the young ones, at least in that perspective? But for this one, we didn't look at that. But knowledge and use, we didn't find any difference between the young ones and the older ones.
So is your youngest one, are they all past like at least preliminary?
Well, so these are middle school. So my kids are 10. It's 12, 13 to 18. Yes, 12 to 18. Yeah. So that's yeah. I think that we wanted to do with the smaller kids, but it's kind of tougher. Yeah, and yeah. So this group was, I think, the easier. Well, I mean, not easier to work with, but that's kind of the context and the IRB and everything.
I thought it was interesting that the male students made healthier choices, because I even find the opposite here. And I wonder, is that a cultural difference between women are expected to be thin?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's everywhere is the same. I mean, but I mean, why only they haven't? So what? Sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes, females are more likely to be obese. Yeah, when they become adult, yeah. So yeah, you are right. Yeah, yeah, but yeah. Yes, sir.
So when you were doing this study, were the labels already in effect?
Yes, 2013. Yeah.
So you-
They are right. Well, I mean, to the extent, so and I don't remember, so, these traffic light labels are supposed to be very self-explanatory, and actually it's kind of, it's easy, and because everybody's evaluating traffic light label knowledge, they ask people, do you know the label? So they say yes or no. But actually we were testing them. We said, like red means high level. And, no, everybody was, it's not like everybody, I mean, you would expect everybody to get like a 90%. Actually, some people say, but it's so obvious. Why are you even asking that question? They should understand. So yeah, I mean, they have seen it. They're supposed to be familiar. Now that's something that initially, the government spent money informing consumers about it. But I mean, after 2-3 years, the government changed, priorities change. So it's not that it has been like a continuous effort of the government to continue educating the population. And even, with the nutritionists we're talking about, I don't know, I mean, there's a curriculum out there where they are teaching children about that. So again, these kids were, the policy came in effect 2013. It's been 9 years old. You think about 12, so they were only 3-4 years old when the policy came into effect. In the initial effort of the government to educate people, I mean, that was just mainly at the beginning. Yeah, no, but yes, probably they are used to see it.
I just wanted to know whether it's a label that's all products or, like healthier things like well-being, right? Things like where you buy on some of the normal market, you might not see the label, but you I'm wondering if the label is usually applied to prepackaged food, which tends to be like healthy.
It's packed food products, Oscar. It's yeah. Yeah, and if you go to the market, buy tomatoes, it doesn't have a label, or the open market. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much. So we have our last presenter. Okay. And our screen sharing. Yes, cool.
So this market reaction to restaurant calorie labeling.
Thank you very much. So yes, as you noted, we're presenting here the market reaction to calorie labeling. Yes, John?
You want to make sure that people on Zoom are seeing your side, not the previous side.
I'm pretty sure they are. Yes, it's sharing the screen. So yes, they are seeing they're seeing that. I'll just minimize this. Okay. So yes, this is the market reaction to the calorie labeling rule. I'm taking over from Emily Wang today. As you may have heard, she's rather lost her voice. So we'll wish Emily a speedy recovery. And also in collaboration with Natalie Lavoie and Jiong Liu. This is a really interesting paper. I think it explores a somewhat unexplored aspect of nutrition labeling, specifically nutrition labeling in restaurants. So let's go. Food away from home has actually become really, really important in Americans' diets. Spending on food away from home has surpassed food consumed at home. That happened in 2018. Perhaps things have changed with the pandemic a little bit, but still, the trends are still going. Yeah, back up. Restaurants' revenues have been increasing year over year. And in 2012, Americans consumed about 1/3 of their calories away from home. It's likely even higher now. This is somewhat concerning because food away from home typically contains a lot more calories, fat, salt, all sorts of unhealthy stuff than food you prepare at home. People pay more attention to food they're preparing themselves. And as a result, it's pretty easy to show a direct link between food consumed away from home and obesity. In order to address this, as part of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, the federal government mandated nutrition labeling in restaurants. This policy went into effect on May 7th of 2018 and affected any chain restaurant with more than 20 locations. This policy required restaurants to do two things. Specifically on menus and menu boards, they had to put their total calories. So if you go to McDonald's today, you'll look at the menu and you'll see the Big Mac, and next to it, you'll see the number of calories. I think it's 452, could be wrong about that. And then also, if you go into McDonald's, you can say, I want to see detailed nutritional information, and I'll have to hand you a big packet of nutrition information. You can leaf through it, and that'll tell you things like fat, cholesterol, sodium, carbohydrates, fiber, protein. So if you want to annoy your local McDonald's employee, go and do that next time you're in there. So this project, the goal of this project is to look at the supply side reactions to this restaurant labeling policy. How have restaurants changed their nutrition offerings with respect to this policy? So we're really interested in restaurant strategic reactions to this policy. The intended outcome of this policy was to discourage consumption of unhealthy foods, mainly by consumers. I'm sure the government wouldn't mind if restaurants also improve the nutrition quality of food at their restaurants. But of course, restaurants' goal is to maximize their profits. And in doing this, they're going to respond strategically. Perhaps they'll do what we hope they'll do, and they'll make their menu items healthier, and this will lead to a positive impact on health. But perhaps they'll think, oh, well, it's only calorie displays. Maybe I'll do something to reduce the calories, but then change some aspect of the nutrition that doesn't affect calories, specifically sodium, we might be really worried about. And we might even worry about other sorts of strategic reactions. Perhaps they might introduce new unhealthy options to make the existing options seem not so bad. And this project is looking to investigate some of these strategic reactions, both theoretically and empirically. So I'm going to try to present some of our early theoretical and empirical work to assess this strategic reactions to this policy. Starting with this theoretical framework, we're trying to develop a theoretical model of the restaurant market, both the consumer side to model demand for meals at restaurants, and at the supply side to model food firms' menu offerings with and without menu labeling. From the demand side, we'd like to incorporate some specific facts, specifically that nutrition labels seem to work. Consumers overestimate nutrition quality of foods without labels. Consumers are heterogeneous in their ability to integrate nutrition quality into their decision making. We know that in the US, at least, women and younger people and more educated people tend to respond to menu labels better than others. But there is also a trade-off, at least a perceived trade-off, between taste and nutritional quality. Consumers think that healthier food tastes worse, and they might change their behavior accordingly. On the supply side, we want to model how this information provision changes restaurant strategies, as we said before. And we might also think about how a increase in nutritional quality might affect prices at these restaurants. So looking at the demand side, we're basing our model off of work by Soler, Aquila, and Zhang. This model is also based off a hoteling model. So the idea is we were looking at the distance between the ideal calorie content of menus and the existing calorie content of menus. So here we see consumers' utility as a function of a constant value term, as well as here is an aspect of taste, the difference between their ideal menu nutrition and the actual observed menu nutrition, as well as a health effect. The consumer's benefit of preference for health and the distance between the observed healthfulness of a product and its actual healthfulness. And the ideal healthfulness, and of course, price as well. If we can think of our supply model as sort of a stylized model with two firms, where the firms can vertically differentiate. A firm might decide to be healthier than their competitor, or they might decide not to be. And they also will compete on the taste dimension. Taste is more of a horizontal differentiation. Calories are measurable and observable, but taste is not. And we'll assume for the moment that the production cost is related to nutrition quality, specifically that providing healthier food is more expensive. So here we can model the profit function as the firm, as a function of the price they choose to charge, as well as the cost, which is a function of the healthfulness of the product, and then the demand that the firms receive. And firms are going to play a sort of a two-stage game here. First, they're going to simultaneously choose the calorie content of their menu items in competition with each other, and then they're going to choose their prices to maximize their profits. Turning now to the data and empirics we have for this project has entailed a massive data collection effort. Specifically, we've done a lot of efforts to collect nutrition information about restaurants. We've done this through a multi-stage process. First, we crawled restaurant websites to get nutrition information. Restaurants will publish nutrition information, generally in PDF format, on their websites. We've downloaded this in a semi-automated process over the course of a couple of years. I believe we went from 2013 to 2019. And then in our second stage of this process, we read these PDFs with optical character recognition software. Then we went through a process of automated data collection with Python, and finally a process of manual data cleaning, which took a very long time, as you can imagine. We collected data on two types of restaurants: large chain restaurants with more than 20 locations. So these restaurants are subject to this nutrition labeling policy that I mentioned earlier, as well as small chain restaurants with fewer than 20 locations. And these might serve as a control sample in a difference in difference model that I'll present later. And for each restaurant in the sample, we've collected data prior to and following the passage of the policy. So our data that we've collected seem to be fairly representative of the overall composition of restaurants in the United States. We managed to collect data on 113 of the top 200 restaurants in the US, and we've roughly matched the distribution of these restaurants in regards to the type of restaurant offered. Some examples of restaurants that we have McDonald's, which is of course the #1 restaurant in the United States, as well as smaller restaurants, Shari's Cafe and Pies, which is the 197th largest restaurant in the United States, as well as a sample of smaller chain restaurants. So these are restaurants with fewer than 20 locations. So some of these chains are pretty small. This data preparation was, of course, an arduous task, as I mentioned before. So what have we found? Well, some sort of interesting results. We see that on average, menu items got healthier in some respects and less healthy in other respects, as we might have expected. The average menu item contained fewer calories after the policy than before the policy. It contained less fat. It contained actually a little bit less sodium, which was a bit surprising. We thought this might be something that restaurants used to mediate their taste when they reduced calories. But the average item also included more calories than before and less dietary fiber. So in some respects, these menu items got healthier. In some respects, they got less healthy. We also looked at these average reductions by the type of food that was offered by category. Thank you very much to Anthony for categorizing all of these. This took a lot of effort. We see that the average reductions in calories, while it looks sort of promising at first, it seems like they were somewhat limited to desserts and these extraneous menu categories with toppings and sauces and the individual ingredients. There's actually perhaps a small increase in the average calories in entrees and appetizers, which is somewhat less promising for the effect of the policy, but it could also be a restaurant composition effect. So our main identification strategy, as I may have mentioned before, is a difference in difference strategy. Specifically, we're using the restaurants with more than 20 locations as a treatment group after the policy went into effect, and restaurants with fewer than 20 locations as a control group. That more or less gets the idea. So implementing this strategy, we see with a very simple model, not a lot of action on the effect of this policy. But once we control for a restaurant fixed effect, we actually see a general reduction in the average calories offered at restaurants. This would imply that this policy seems to work pretty well. If we focus on entrees only, we actually see a even larger reduction in average calories at restaurants. This implies that restaurants have decreased their average calories as a result of this policy intervention. We'd really like to expand this analysis more, and I'd really like to hear any comments that you guys have on both the theoretical model and our empirics so far. So thank you very much for listening. Taking questions?
So for you, can you show me your model?
Yes.
The specification?
The specification, yes.
Yeah, so you put in this log, maybe just to interpret as a percentage change. So the 25 calorie doesn't say relative to what?
That's a good idea. Well, it's
25 is large, it's small. What was the average? I don't remember.
so the average we're looking at is about 400. 25 is not insignificant, but yeah, the log that's not a bad idea to do a log function on that.
Okay, so again, so you went online to look for all menus before the policy. When was the policy?
It was implemented in 2018.
So you were before looking online for the all menus. That's the.
Yeah, we were a little bit of foresight. It wasn't me who did it. It was I think Chiong and Natalie who had the idea to start with. But yeah, there was some good foresight in collecting those.
So before the policy, you started collecting data.
Yes, because the policy was part of the Affordable Care Act. I actually don't need to have this. And the Affordable Care Act passed in 2010, and it took the FDA forever to actually implement the policy. It took them 8 years to actually get this policy together. So it was coming for a while.
So the policy, but I mean, so something like somebody can say, well, they already started to change.
I think that's probably reasonably likely that they would have started to change before the policy. They were definitely anticipating it, but we do see some effects that have taken place after the policy. I think it will be worth plotting exactly what this change looked like and see if there is sort of a marked divergence after this policy went into effect.
It's not have that time first, but I think it gives you an idea of, how much things that you would be assuming firms will actively change their policy.
So we have one question. So what's an individual ingredient? What do they call an individual ingredient?
Yes, so an individual ingredient, this will be, so it's not quite often these menus get listed out. Like if you go to a sandwich place, for example, Subway, each of the individual parts of the sandwich are listed out separately because you construct your own sub. So you get lettuce, ham, tomatoes, whatever. Those are the individual ingredients. Yes.
Interesting to look at the change in average calorie of a fast food restaurant versus sit down. I don't know if you provided the data that way.
Yeah, we do have that. It does, as I remember, the fast food restaurants did have slightly higher calorie reductions. As I remember.
It's the fast food is like pizza and deli.
So the industry term for this is limited service restaurant. Yes, so that would be the categorization that we would use. And yes, it would include pizzas and delis and Subway, for example. But something that is somewhat interesting is that the average calories in those menus tend to be a little bit lower. So like if you go to McDonald's as opposed to a sit-down restaurant, each of the individual items at McDonald's is smaller because you're supposed to order them sort of separately. And of course, Subway as well has that same thing. But if you go to a sit-down restaurant, you order your whole meal all together, and it ends up being like 1,000 calories.
Hi, Josh. I have a question. Have you considered showing the parallel trends for your treatment and control group before the act is taking effect, so that we have more credibility in your difference framework? And secondly, you talk a lot about the theoretical framework, right, from the structural model. Do you have an idea or a plan for how are you going to analyze that from a structural modeling perspective?
Yes. So I think our main issue here is that we've sort of just finished our data collection process, and we're now shifting gears to the proper analysis. First, with respect to the parallel trends assumption, I think that will end up being a big sticking point of this project, whether restaurants with fewer than 20 locations do actually perform the same as restaurants with more than 20 locations. We are a little bit limited. I think we only have 1 or 2 waves of data collection for the restaurants with less than 20 locations before the policy went into effect. So it might be a little bit difficult to prove that parallel trends assumption. In fact, I think it's going to be very difficult to really properly assess that. With regards to the theoretical model, I think, yes, the goal is to do sort of a structural modeling approach. But first things first, we'll want to settle on exactly what we want to look at in our theoretical model. It's sort of in progress at the moment.
So you didn't have you don't have any result from the theoretical model, because you just show very general that there is nothing.
No, not really.
You didn't show, at the beginning you were saying it would increase or decrease, but you just show the setup of the model.
Yes.
But you don't have any results.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting some actual results out of this. The data collection has been such a monstrous task that we're getting very close to being done with it, and I'm really am looking forward to getting some proper results out of this project.
Do you have any questions for any of the presenters? So if not, thank you very much. Very good.
Okay, well, thank you very much to those online. I think that we're done with the session.